on to our next presenter, who is right here. It's Dominique Kim. She's my partner in crime with the Health Tech Founder Institute Health Tech Accelerator. She comes from business background in healthcare, where I was part of, which is Kaiser Permanente. She's been about making sure all people have equal access to good healthcare and continuous health, especially driven by helping seniors. And she also has a passion for mental health. So that's where she is. And she's the co-lead of Health Tech Accelerator at Founder Institute, where we partnered with Founder Institute to create this first ever health tech vertical in the Founder Institute. So welcome, Dominique. I'll let you, I'm sure I missed a lot of things in your background, but I'll let you share what is important here, and please take the stage. You may be muted.
Okay, luckily I didn't say too much yet.
Okay.
I was just saying thank you for the nice introduction, and you didn't miss anything super important. My background, other than, well, I guess the background that I have that led into me being interested in this space of health and health tech innovation is my background in public health. I specialized back when I got my master's in public health and health education and social determinants of health. As Yuli mentioned, I've always been particularly passionate about access to health, and even within a specific hospital, access to the same high quality care across all patients. And then, of course, access to populations for whom there are huge gaps in care. My particular passions are mental health and also our aging population. But when you're in public health, as many of you know, whether you studied it or not, there are always areas or gaps in quality of care that affect patient experience, your outcomes. And so I've worked for over 20 years in healthcare industry for Kaiser Permanente, and I've also worked for Blue Shield of California and a little bit for some community-based organizations like the Institute for Aging. But I guess the common denominator for me has been increasingly the role of technology, where when I started in the 90s working in quality improvement and working in healthcare systems, we didn't really think about technology as more than kind of a lever to reach goals that were set in quality, important goals. But now more than ever, I've realized, mostly through my work at Kaiser Permanente, where I work to help optimize the electronic health record in a variety of ways, I've realized that technology isn't just a tool. We used to say, oh, technology shouldn't be the end. It should just be, a tool to get to the end. And that's true, but I think more and more technology has been taking on a greater and greater role in making transformational change in the healthcare processes and also the outcomes in public health. I guess the state of public health across multiple populations. And so in short, a couple of years ago, I pivoted from working directly in healthcare operations and strategy and trying to improve wait times and also trying to leading bigger initiatives such as how can we improve palliative care for populations in the state of Massachusetts and stuff like that. I enjoyed all of that, but I've really made a switch to just thinking about how can we help young entrepreneurs with good ideas that can help move the needle in health. How can we help them move forward, be successful, and have a lot of fun while they're doing it? I mean, granted, it's very, very tough to start a company, but there's a lot of networking and resource connection that I enjoy being a part of, and helping founders to really connect with the right people, to connect the dots, to understand the US healthcare system better. So that's where Yuli and I kind of play that sandbox at Founder Institute. And I've had a really good time kind of getting to know what the ingredients are to helping health tech founders grow and succeed. And it's a journey, learning more by the minute. Anyway, I thought I would use some of this time just to tell you a little bit about the Founder Institute. I think many of you probably are familiar with it. But even if you are, I prepared just a few slides that can not just tell you about Founder Institute. This isn't meant to be a promotion for Founder Institute, even though Yuli and I really believe in the value of it. It's also meant to teach you a little bit or just beef up your knowledge about accelerators and the role that they play in helping entrepreneurs at a very early stage, in our case, connect with the resources like this group here, InnovatorMD, but also a lot of other resources, whether they be people or information or partners. And so I'm just going to talk a little bit about Founder Institute with an eye toward this is how accelerators, especially pre-seed ones, can help entrepreneurs, many of you included in the audience, reach a stage where you can actually become a fundable company and have your dreams come true when it comes to having an idea and really making it go the mile. So I think what I'll do is I'll share my screen, if that's okay, Yuli. Just get to where I want to be. And can you guys all hear me okay? I'm actually gonna just try to kind of, is that volume okay?
Yes, it's good.
Okay. Okay, cool. So let me just take a minute to pull this up. Okay, sorry about the delay. This shouldn't take too much longer. Okay. All right. So just as I'm pulling this up, the Founder Institute has been around since 2009. And just by way of background, it is an organization that's global that stands next to many other accelerators, but the difference is that we actually take founders at a very, very early stage. So I know many of you are founders or have founded many companies or one or more companies, but Founder Institute is truly one of the only accelerators that only takes founders that are at a very early stage. Whereas you might look at a YC, Y Combinator, or other accelerators that take founders at many, many different stages, but they're not really focused on and tailoring their program to early stage investors. So let me try this again. I'm having a little trouble with the share function. So I'm just gonna make sure I can get to this. And I apologize for this. You know, Yuli, I think I might just talk off the cuff if that's okay. Awesome. All right, sorry about that. And I can share the deck afterwards as well. And then we can leave a little bit of time for Q&A.
Sure.
But the Founder Institute, maybe with a show of hands, can people raise their hands if they don't know anything about the Founder Institute? I'm going to try to level set my talk toward what people already know so that I'm catering a little bit to what people already know. All right, thanks, Sapna. So you do know, and by know about, I mean, you've actually interacted with people that work there. You have a sense of what we do. You've kind of been to one or more of our sessions. Okay. Okay, good. So this is good. Sapna, you get an A. You get a gold star. I think maybe we don't have as many people. Perfect. Okay. And I'll share slides later too, but I'll just talk off the cuff. So Founder Institute is, like I mentioned, has helped over 6,000 founders go through its program. And that is since 2009. And so just to drop some stats, just to give you a sense of the impact, not to show off how big Founders is, but to show you how much impact Founders has had in kind of training and releasing early stage entrepreneurs into the world that are really ready to get funded. So we have over 6,000 founders, and I don't mean companies, I mean founders. So some founders come in as co-founders, but there have been at least 4,000 companies that have gone through the program. Now, what is the program? First of all, you apply to get into the program, and when you're applying, we look for the alignment of your company's goals and your idea with one or more of the UN Sustainable Health Goals. So the UN Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, and that's, if you look them up online, and many of you may be familiar, they have to do with finance or health, whatever area of sustainable development globally you are interested in. There are many of those categories, as you can imagine. Yuli and I started the health tech vertical at Founders, which for whatever reason had never existed before last year. And I think there are reasons for that. I think there have been a lot of technological advances with accelerators, or advances in the stages of accelerators that have led the path forward for health tech. But in any event, the founders that graduate go through a 13-week program. And so again, when they're accepted into the program, our founders, it's a criteria that they don't have a lot going on with traction. They don't have multiple partners yet. They don't have usually a prototype. They may not even have a validated idea, but they have a good idea, right? And so our admissions process is to really weed out those, and it's a pretty selective process, but weed out those founders that don't have alignment with a sustainable development goal. And even more importantly, that don't necessarily have an idea that Founder Institute believes will have traction in the long run. So we accept about 30 or so founders. Out of those, a certain number actually, enroll. And the 13-week program is similar to many other accelerators, but we tailor it toward, founders that are very young. So we start with orientation, then we have vision, because a lot of people wonder, well, what happens inside the doors of an accelerator? I just went to TechCrunch today and heard from a few different accelerators, including Y Combinator or so-called YC. And they always get this too, like what actually happens like behind the curtain of the accelerator? And it's no secret, a lot of accelerators have the same kind of format, but you start with, in any particular order, but customer development, you look at product development, you look at revenue, how do you build your business model? How do you, there's probably a couple sessions worth on how do you actually make sure that you have good product market fit? How do you make sure that you have the right team? How do you make sure that you are scaling and you have a good go-to-market plan? How do you make sure that as you move through, you're really in tune with changes in the market and the competitive marketplace? So that you're able, even during the course of the program, the market can change. You're able to pivot and move and change and dynamically iterate your pitch. Speaking of which, we give a lot of input on your pitch. So every week, the company will get up, we'll have a subset of the whole cohort. Last time we had 30 founders starting in the cohort. A subset will get up and pitch. They'll be on the hot seat. So they'll give a pitch, sometimes 3 minutes, sometimes 1 minute. And we have mentors, some of whom are here today. I see David Bieber and Yuli, of course, and others. Some of you are potentially future mentors. Will judge the pitches and give ratings. And then week over week, there's a pretty quantitative process by which the ratings kind of hopefully improve, but we track the progress of the founders over time. So they have a hot seat in almost every session. And then we have a speaker speak to the topic of that week. So I mentioned revenue, I mentioned product development, and we have mentors that are specifically, that are SMEs, if you will, in that area, subject matter experts. Legal, IP, that is another area where there's often a lot of coaching that's needed as well, understandably. So we do this for 13 weeks across different topics, and then the founders graduate. So what then? They graduate out of the program. Hopefully, and usually they have a much, much better pitch. The whole point of the program is to get them to the point where they've gone from an idea to a pretty kick-butt pitch that they can pitch in front of a VC, an angel investor, a friend, friends and family, wherever you are in your stage of funding, and you will you'll just have followed the formula for giving a really good slam dunk pitch, and you'll also have gotten input from sometimes 70 plus mentors about your pitch. And so it's a very, very iterative process with a goal of getting to the point where you can get funding, or at least you have a much better shot, careful how I say that, of getting funding. And many of our funders, or rather our founders, do graduate at that point. I wanted to mention too, and then I'll probably wrap up soon just for sake of time and to leave time for questions. But founders that graduate, I just saw the statistic, only, but I don't think Yuli and I were surprised, only 15% of founders actually go into another accelerator. Most of our founders either go back into the ecosystem and try to build their company, get stronger, gain traction, get partners, do more beta testing, hone their MVP, which often can change and needs to be changed kind of as the times change, And then they will go right into seed funding, or round A or round B. So there really is a lot of traction that you can get, not necessarily right away, but many companies do. So there's kind of a gamut. So even though they start early stage, they may, as you know, companies can be at many different stages of getting traction after they leave an accelerator, whether it's a pre-seed or another kind of accelerator like a Y Combinator. Yeah, and the last thing I'll say is that there's so much opportunity now in health tech. I mean, I just went to TechCrunch. They had their TechCrunch Disrupt 2022 conference. And I don't know if any of the rest of you were there, but it was really inspiring to hear from VCs, you know, what they're looking at. And a lot of the same themes, you know, are always there, you know, like, yeah, there's a lot of dynamics in the market, but I did hear that there definitely seem to be trends that are happening. And health tech is definitely one of those areas that is growing, digital health included, as many of you know. Some of you are nodding, but there's a real opportunity right now. And just because the economy is at the state where it is right now does not mean that it is a bad time to start a company, grow a company, go into an accelerator, whatever point you're at. It's much, much riskier for companies that are going into seed funding, you know, B, C, even A. But for pre-seed and early start companies, I was reminded by many VCs that if they were a founder, they would rather be getting pre-seed funding right now than actually trying to go into, you know, the very tense and often, you know, often a tough environment of trying to get funding. If you're really, really, really good and you've already got a foot in the door, that will help. But I guess my point is it really is a good time it's not a bad time. And if anything, it's even a good time to be for health tech, as far as starting a company, creating your prototypes, getting people interested, finding partners, and getting funding. So that's a little bit about FI. And Yuli, I wanted to remind people too that we have a couple of recorded sessions through InnovatorMD that Yuli and our team have put together, interviewing some of our FI mentors, including Gary Goldstein, for example, on what is an accelerator, when is it the right time to get into one, what are some lessons learned, what are some anecdotal kind of stories that can help you decide, or people you know. I know many of us are not necessarily founders today, but that information could be useful for friends or colleagues that you know that might be excited. They have an idea, but they're not sure what to do or how to get resources for it. So that's my spiel on Founder Institute and a little bit about accelerators too. I hope it was helpful and not too redundant for some of you.
Great message and talk. Thanks, Dominique. One thing I wanted, you know, our audience to know is that the reason why there are not people or accelerators focusing on pre-seed or early stage is because it is hard work. It is a mission-driven focus that we have, right? You know, nobody wants to deal with, you know, people who are just starting off because they need a lot of, you know, education, hand-holding, and mentorship. It is a very time-consuming process. By the time they come to a stage where they could be funded, you know, a lot of people would have filtered out, or, you know, they would have changed their idea and gone into something else. But this part, the early part, when you start with your idea on the napkin to bring them to a stage where, you know, it could be potentially fundable, that is a lot of hard work. And most, you know, most accelerators want a great company that has revenue coming in, that is, you know, about to take over the world, right? You know, that's where the money is. But, you know, since InnovatorMD and FI we have the same mission, is that you create from scratch, from zero, and build these companies and help these founders. So, and I wanted to put that word out there that, you know, we are a mission-driven company, you know, for that reason. So, any questions so far? Dominic, do you want to add anything to that?
I caught myself this time on mute. Yeah, I just wanted to say that, yeah, it's even though it might be a really good time to start a company, and I don't know, if I was starting a company, I'd be really excited to start right now, because I think come January too, there's going to be a lot more optimism about the economy, even though we're nowhere close to in the clear. But in any event, like Yuli said, it is a really tough program. And in our orientation, oh, I see your hand up, David. We'd love to hear what you have to say too, but it's a tough program. And so, but I think that's good because it's practice for the real world, so to speak. And so as cliche as that sounds, there's a lot of founders that need a lot of practice, and they just never have, been in an environment where they're on a hot seat. And so it's a really good, safe place to test your ideas, to make mistakes, to come back. We all become kind of a family, like you were saying, Sapna. We all become a family in that cohort, good, bad, and ugly. And we give tough feedback, and they keep going, and it is tough, but it's so necessary if you're going to go in the world and try to make it and have a company succeed. So that's all I want to add.
I think the best part is where you have this huge network of individuals that you become a part of. And so you can access anybody in the world,
Yeah.
and be able to get your connection there.
Sorry about my dog.
Okay, David, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I just really wanted to echo what both of you were saying, because I couldn't agree more that when you're kind of at the early stages, the best thing you can possibly do is kind of get mentors, create a network, kind of start that flywheel. Because if you can actually do that for a couple of years and you're not worrying about actually the revenue and that other stuff, really learning and building that network, that's where the flywheel will really take off once you actually get farther down the road. So I absolutely love what you guys are doing between the two groups, and I support it, because I think that's what's always worked really well for me. Is even when I was just first starting out with this, I took on managing an entrepreneurial community so I could help build the network, learn, do all that other stuff while there wasn't then pressure on building the startup. So I think being in these groups really just gets those wheels going, and then gives you that much more opportunity for the future. So I just wanted to echo your guys' comments.
Oh, thanks, David.
Thank you, David. Any other questions? While people are thinking about questions, one of the comments, one of the points that Dominique made was that this is a good time to start. And the reason for that is, when the economy is down, nobody's actually thinking about startups. And so when you do a startup at a low point, when the economy takes off, you will be growing with that. And then by the time, you need money, that's when the economy bounces back. And so you'll also learn, how to run a lean company when the economy is not so good, because you have very little money, and you really learn how to maximize your efforts and maximize, whatever resources you have. So yeah, so it's great to see you all.